And we're live.
Hi.
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 Welcome, everybody, to another evolutionary conversation. Sarah's here, and we're going to talk about love, the magic of love, how to find it or invite it, nourish it, have it flourish.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a series that we'll do. So, do you want to start off with just what's your you talk about your inviting love, the magic part of that for you and how you approach it.
Perfect. Thank you. Great question
Yeah.
about that. And it is post Valentine's Day. So hopefully people felt a lot of love on Valentine's Day, whether it was from externally or they gave it to themselves. And I hope so, because it's just a friendly reminder. I think of February as the whole focus of love. I always talk in stories. I'm a storyteller and analogies. But I will share when I first got my, let's just say, confidence in love. I was a really shy kid and teenager. And when I was 18, my stepmother suggested that I should work at a store called Trader Joe's. And I was just 18. I didn't know anything about it. It's kind of one of my first jobs. And there wasn't many Trader Joe's at the time. But when I worked there, I had to talk to people all day long and be friendly and an invitation. And after a while, I made so many friends. People would wait in my line, especially, and men, women, everybody, just because I was really friendly and always wanted people to feel invited because I'd been a new kid at school many times growing up. So I thought, well, I'm going to make sure people feel, welcomed. And I remember one of the managers who was a little grumpy was like, "Oh, your line is always the longest and you need to be more efficient and not talk to people so much." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. Actually, everyone needs to be more like how I'm doing it because people feel invited and welcomed and they usually come in and they spend more, they have a better time, and then they bring their friends back." And so that was my philosophy. 25 years later, I know that Trader Joe's implemented that. They have a whole wow experience where everybody needs to feel welcomed and heard and listened to. So that was excellent training for me to learn how to have confidence talking to people, but also ensure that I was an invitation for friendliness. And he's my now ex-husband, but I met my ex-husband working at Trader Joe's. He was a customer because I just got so used to talking to people and making them feel comfortable that it was a real space for love. So that was just one story, and I've always implemented that ever since. I think it's important to be a welcome invitation.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I think for me, part of it too, if in the romantic context, one of the ways to make sure that we're inviting it is to actually make sure you're complete from the previous relationship, so that you're not carrying over residue, and make sure that you're not overgeneralizing. I think it's a common way to sort of soothe pain afterwards, to generalize to, well, men are blah blah blah, or women are blah blah blah, or they always, and you make these sweep, or what am I doing wrong? Or people start making all these generalizations, and I think it's important, especially in the end of a relationship, to make sure that you're set up and still open to possibility,
Mm-hmm.
and not creating your own cynicism and resignation, but be curious, be open. Or if you're not ready, then don't be in the space where you really shouldn't be looking. So but when you're ready to be open to it, come to it fresh, come to it with a beginner's mind, with
Yes,
a I don't know, a childlike spirit, if you will.
that's perfect. That was my
Yeah.
18-year-old. Here's my first job, and I'm just going to be
Yeah.
friendly, kind of childlike spirit. I think that's really great advice, Jason. Also, if you're coming at things in a sort of cynical way, it's hard for much else to come in. So an invitation.
Sure.
I'm personally studying to become a feng shui master, which is really about setting up your environment so that it's in harmony with you. And in that regard, one of the first things that you do is you have matching nightstands on each side of the bed so that you are already thinking in terms of being a couple. So, what would it feel like to have your partner there so that they're comfortable? I've always loved interior design and gardening, but making it where it's an invitation that people want to come in and that they want to pause and stay there and they feel good there. So, I definitely recommend just even a few feng shui studies for being an invitation for love. And I also think that's about getting your own environment clean within. So whatever you need to do to remove negative thoughts from your psyche and your house, or any maybe past reminders that trigger you. So you have this kind of fresh new
Yes.
environment that's very, very welcoming.
Yes. Change the photographs and
And on social media too. Change that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of people don't realize they're prolonging their suffering by keeping, all this memorabilia from the last relationship. They're prolonging their grief.
They are. They're just getting constantly, ripping carrying back into the wound before it can heal. Because there's that song, "There's always something there to remind me." I
Right.
don't change my whole wardrobe, but I will say I have given away or sold clothes or just been, like, things that really reminded me of maybe a first date with somebody.
Sure.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
your mind is always trying to keep you safe, so you go back to things like, oh, how did I feel when I was wearing that? So I think whatever you can do, even so, when I would get to work at Trader Joe's, I would ride my bicycle like 10 miles to get there, and I'd listen to music. So my endorphins were so high by the time I got there, and I was in a really good mood. Or I'd walk on the beach, and then I would be around people. And I said to you that I don't always love going out to places, but even today I got myself in a really good mood. I was talking to the dog, telling him how much I love him, and then I then I went out to a store, and then I had a great conversation with the woman at the store. She was so sweet, like we practically hugged each other. She was like, "Oh, you're the nicest customer." I was like, "Oh, you're the nicest, person who's helped me," and we had this great interaction, and I was, came back in a good mood. So I think that's a really important thing, is to always, you're not able to get your kind of frequency and your vibe high, take a nap or watch some comedy or do something or listen to happy music, and then get yourself in a good mood, and then go out or then interact with people or send a message.
Yeah, everything really is self-hypnosis. The songs you listen to, the shows you're watching, and so if you're if you're in those, the books you read.
Yes.
So if you're, the trances that you're in, you need to, there's no escaping that, but there is it's certainly worthwhile to use it for your own benefit, to be sure. Yeah.
I love
All right. So yeah. So nourishing it, people are in love, and I posted something about this yesterday to promote this talk, and then I just, or maybe it was on Valentine's Day. If you really need, if you only have an annual time where you're appreciating each other, then your relationship's probably already on life support. But I think it's just important to, daily, and again, self-hypnosis, we can talk about that again, but to daily just, talk about what you appreciate about them, or make sure that they're appreciated. Make sure you're, noticing things about them and expressing things about them that you really do appreciate, and making sure that you don't say like, I think a lot of relationships die in the unsaid. So yeah, and so making sure that there's nothing that's, piling up, it's unexpressed. And similarly on the other side, make sure that you're providing a space that people can speak into when they need to express something. So make it easy for them to share things, so they don't begin to shut down and learn that they can't express things for you or to you.
That is spot on, because if you want someone to tell you the truth, I know sometimes my friends would be like, "You know what he just told me?" And I was like, "Yeah, but didn't you tell him that you wanted him to be open and honest with you?" I said, "So you're going to have to keep that space. If you said, 'I want you to tell me anything and be honest with me,' I'm like, then you're not going to be able to just immediately turn around and say, 'What did you say?'" So creating, at least I love social graces, and so I was born on a farm, and we gardened and grew all of our own food and shared with our neighbors. But in that, when you're gonna create a garden, you get that garden really ready. You make sure that the soil is fertile and that it's the right conditions for what you're going to plant. And I like planting perennial seeds that are going to continue to grow. I'm really big on um, in permaculture, there's something called magniculture, which is where you are giving a microdose of exactly the right nutrients each day. So if you were to think about your relationship as, I'm going to give this a microdose of everything it needs, and I like to take from the five love languages of, am I speaking in those regards? Where, and I was really fortunate to have one of my best friends, and she was also my roommate for a while. And we would take turns each morning making each other breakfast. And then over breakfast, we would tell each other what we appreciated about one another. And then we would always give each other a hug. And then we'd go for a nice walk. And I mean, she's married and has great relationships, and I've had really great relationships. But I think about how much that nourished me to have that safe space to do that. And she also she's very emotionally expressive, and I remember the first time I was around her and she cried. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I wasn't sure how to handle being around someone who was crying and showing emotion because I was kind of told to keep a lot of things buttoned up. And she's like, "Oh, you know what? I just feel better. I need to get it out, and then I feel great." And she looks really young. She doesn't age, and she's like, "I think if you cry or you release your emotions at times, then you'll always stay young looking because you're not." Having things pent up. So, some people would hate it if you cried around them. And I've definitely had men say, "Oh, how are you? What are you going through?" And then I got a little teary eyed and they're like, you better stop letting people see you cry. I'm like, no, I'm going to be a full range of emotions. And I want someone else to be a full range of emotions and
Yeah.
feel accepted. So to me, that's a very nourishing, hospitable environment for things to express and seeds
Yeah.
to blossom.
Yeah. It's really great. It's really great. Yeah. I think it's important too to, sometimes if you have children or if you have, it's easy to get caught up in a job or
Mhm.
children or responsibilities. And I think it's important to actually set aside time to actually schedule time. I mean, we've all heard about, having a date night or something, but I think even to make sure that, you drop in for some period of time every day and really connect, even if it's, just for 15 minutes in the morning without devices or,
Mhm.
or well, I think devices covers it. Um, and just to make sure it's tended to and to be fully present with them but
Mhm.
to make sure that it's actually something that's scheduled, that's actually in your calendar.
Yeah, it's a ritual.
If
Yeah,
you're super busy, and you're you don't have any time, well then schedule some time.
and it's also
um
gonna create more time in your life because you're gonna have more energy because 'cause you're gonna be releasing lots of feel-good hormones and endorphins and serotonin and oxytocin because 'cause you're gonna
yeah.
feel good. So then you'll have a spring in your step and be able to do a lot more things. Because when you have great relationships, it's just, "Oh, this is fun. Life is fun." And it's easy
Mm.
rather than it being, a pile on the to-do list. It's a joy of a relationship. Just like really gardening is a joy, and then you get to, bring it all together and cook together. And Jason, I love that I said how you had a rose budget for I love that so much. I wish every man would get a rose budget. Listen up. It's a
Mm.
good thing. Yeah, we talk
Yeah.
a little bit more about that, where that was your um
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a poem or something thoughtful or but yeah, I used to get at least 2 dozen roses every, about every 10 days. And I would arrange them myself because I don't like, so I would, sort of have them in a mild cascade and a butcher paper wrap rather, well, not butcher paper, but, paper wrap rather than a plastic, store-bought
mhm,
wrap. Like actually put some, it only takes 5 minutes to put it together and tie a ribbon around it. Uh, and the fact that you've done it yourself, it's actually, much more thoughtful. But also, I mean, I love to cook, but I was in a workshop last night, and this woman said, "Well, if it was a relationship workshop." She said, "Well, if you were gonna make somebody dinner, what would you make them?" I said, "Well, I couldn't possibly say that. I would need to ask what kind of food they like, what they don't like, what their
Mhm.
preferences are, and what sort of it could be what sort of dietary preferences they have. The last thing in the world you want to do is go, oh, look, I made sushi and they're allergic to fish. So,
Exactly.
um, so you just want to you don't want to, and I think a lot of people do this too in a lot of contexts. They project their own preferences and values onto people
Mhm.
rather than being curious and asking people what their preferences are. At the same time, we've all heard, women's exasperation about like, well, where do you want to go? Well, where do you want to go, right? And so I don't want to ask her where to go, but I'll ask her what kind of experience she wants to have.
Exactly.
And maybe she's like, well, I want to have an intimate experience there. I want to have a fun, exciting, like
Mhm.
dazzling experience or so, maybe if, depending on those answers, then I pick a place. And maybe it's a quiet out of the way place, or maybe it's a place that, there was a sushi restaurant in San Francisco, and they had like club music and anime on TV screens everywhere.
Okay.
Um, and it was, not something I, like not necessarily my style, but it was considered a lot of fun. And
And different. Yeah.
yeah, definitely different, definitely different.
Mhm.
Um, Japanese anime all over this restaurant.
Mhm.
Um, and the music wasn't so loud you couldn't talk, but it was definitely an upbeat, fun kind of experience. And so, it just depends on what their preferences are, what's interesting to them. And I also think it's important, I like to go deep fast. So I think a lot of people, they don't, uh, they think knowing about somebody's past or knowing facts or, whether or not they where they went to school or whether or not they have siblings, they think
Right.
tells them. I don't think it tells you anything about the
Nothing.
person. What's important to them in relating, what's important to them in life, what they're up to in life.
In the
Um,
now.
yeah, yeah. Uh, those things are. I mean, I may not even. There's sometimes where I forget that people even have siblings because I'm so
Mhm.
connected to the person in
Mhm.
front of me, and I just want to have depth relating with them. So
Which
yeah.
is great. And I'm an experiencer. I like a experiential marketing, curating events. I've done that for years. Or if people came to
Mhm.
visit me, I've lived all over the world, and I lived in London. And my friend, she was visiting, and I said, I'm gonna, take you on this really scenic, meandering walk today, and we're gonna see all sorts of fun things. And we did. It was just the best time. She's like, how do you know all these places? And it's like, well, I like to research it and make sure that you're gonna have a full range of experiences. We went from, the gardens and the parks to we're going to go into the city with the lofts and all the just lots of aspects to it. And it was very fun and memorable. And those are cherished memories. So I always associate someone else who does that for me. I was like, wow, okay, that person took some time, they researched and they took the lead. Somebody does that for me. I just adore that, and I'll like never forget it. I'm like, thank you for being someone else who's really thoughtful and intuitive, and also, okay, let's be curious together. Let's go have some new adventures, and then also here's some places I'm pretty sure, based on what I know from you, that I think you're going to like. And it comes back to knowing how someone likes their coffee. I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got a really nice compliment from one of my friends the other day. She's like, I've never met anybody who actually listened to things and remembered them later, like you do. And I said, well, thanks. I said, I have a really good memory, but also I trained myself to have a good memory because it's important. So, and I sometimes tell men when they, well, I'm like, here's some tips for women. Women, yeah, we talk a lot. That's, I know. But if you could clue in on a couple things, key things that she says, and remember those, and then repeat them back to her later about some, band that she likes or something, just something that brings
Yeah.
back the association. She'll be like, oh, he was paying attention. He was really thinking about me. And, you might forget a lot of the other things she said, but at least a couple of key points. I think all humans like that, male or female, but that's definitely a way with women to make them feel like they're being thought of and heard and appreciated, because
Yeah.
that's definitely what women love so much of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I notice I don't particularly care if somebody doesn't remember, but I'm always surprised and delighted when they do.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's just a wonderful, and I don't, and partly because I don't make it mean anything if they don't,
Yeah.
I don't. It's like when somebody, and this happens in all contexts, and it's a useful way of managing our experience. People are making it. We make up what stuff means all the time. The
Mm-hmm.
person was late. Oh, it means they don't respect my time. Well, maybe, or maybe it means that they were taking their cat to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
or or their phone battery died, or
Yeah.
who knows. So we have to be vigilant about it. So I don't like to make stuff like that up, but it is
It's a nice
it
little
just is.
add-on.
It's a very nice little add-on when somebody
Yeah.
remembers something. Yeah, it's delightful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like delights, as far as nourishing. I think that's just, having someone, well, getting to know what is important to them and then giving that back to them. Just like you said, what kind of food do you like? And like, oh, I got this at the store because I know you like such and such. That's always a nice feeling. I worked at a cafe and I really enjoyed being the barista. And after a while, everyone's like, oh, I want you to make the coffee because you really seem to care. And you,
I'd rather hear, there's something going on. I'm not quite sure what it is, but
mhm,
like there's something, you know, I would rather hear that than, find out later that something was going on that they didn't, or hear from somebody else that there was a complaint or a concern or something that was unexpressed. Um, and um, and it could be as simple as stating but also I think a lot of people fall into the trap of, I think, well, maybe it doesn't matter that much. Like, I don't, no need to rock the boat, or no need to, or I don't know if or maybe they talk themselves out of their
mhm,
preference being that important, which is really them saying, to themselves, I'm not that important,
mhm.
them. And I think it's important to express your needs and desires very plainly and as quickly as possible. And if there's a complaint, you bring it to the person who it can make a difference with, which is your partner, the one that you have the complaint about, and even if it's a friend, like, in the past when I've had a lover and she comes to me with complaining about one of her girlfriends or something, I said, well, have you told her that? Like, have you expressed this to her? And not that I don't want to hear it. That's not true at all. It's just that, well, have the conversation, and don't let it sit. Don't let it wait. Don't wait too long.
That's the best advice ever. It's very true because, I speak for myself. I haven't always felt safe to speak up about things, or that it wasn't going to arrive very well, and also avoiding conflict just means that and people can feel it anyway. So, like you said, in the silence and in the unspoken, it's something that people can tell something's going on or something's brewing.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess I sometimes haven't spoken up because I didn't think I was gonna get a resolution or that anything was gonna change. So I would feel very resigned about it,
Yeah.
or and that's when I think it's it just becomes this. You want to make sure that the person that you're talking to is going to help you through it, to help you open up. So I think that's an important thing for a man or a woman, but especially, when I've heard it said when men's like, I don't know, she just shut down. And I know when women shut
Yeah.
down because they usually come and talk to me, and then they're not shut down with me, but we're sitting there and having the whole, upset, and we're working through it and processing it. We rarely will go and tell the the man or the partner what's going on,
Yeah.
but they can feel it in our passive aggressive, or just that we're pulled back. And it almost always comes around to safety, or not. Like, I think in my last experience, it was too much third party. I didn't feel like it was he and I anymore, even though we would say, it's going to be the two of us. But then all of these little cracks would get in of other people saying, well, they put doubt in there, or asking other people's advice or opinion, it just, I think, spirals downhill from there. So I think keeping a beautiful
Yeah.
sanctity of your relationship, where it's the two of you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's, and I think people, I'll go one step further. I don't know that people like they don't. Whenever people give advice, first of all, often they're just not qualified. But second of
Exactly.
all, they don't. They almost never say, "Well, what is it that you? What's your out? Like, what is it that you want in this situation?"
Hmm.
Before they give you advice, and so instead of based on what you want, they'll give you advice based on what they would want in the situation, which is
True.
just it's never going to get good results. And also, if they're run by loyalty, which a lot of friends are,
Hmm.
then maybe nobody's good enough for you,
Exactly.
or like I know, I've certainly in the past, my best friends have been like, oh, no, no, nobody's good enough for him. Like she's not, like, and
Yeah.
I don't, not nobody, but like, no, he can do better than her, like,
Hmm.
so you have to be really, really cautious about, also polluting their relate, because what will happen is they'll just stop sharing with you about them. And also, circling back to what you said about a woman being shut down, if she shut down and withdrawn, guys, you better check that out, and you
Hmm.
better do it curiously and safely and sweetly. Because if you don't, well, she's already making plans to leave, probably.
Yeah. And
So,
all the women come to me and they're making their plans to leave. And then, later I'm
yeah,
friends with both of them. And the guy's like, I didn't see this coming. I'm like, God, I've been knowing about it for a long time. And, it hurts me to hear, because I'm like, oh, and I've always saying, like, do you want to talk to him about it? Most of the time that the women will feel like they've tried or they've expressed their needs. And then the guy pretty much said no, almost in a like a fatherly way or like a boss kind of thing. And
yeah,
especially, there's a lot of women who feel very vulnerable and dependent. They might not make as much money, or they're sharing a house together. So
sure,
I know for myself, it was a long time ago, but I was in a relationship with someone who got violent with me. So I needed to plan my exit in a safe way. Um, and
yeah,
that was really tough. But, for me, that changed something where I'm not going to let myself be in harm's way. So if a relationship starts feeling
right,
like I'm not safe, then most women will figure out how they're going to not only leave you, but they'll also seek safety and comfort in others. So they're like, if my partner is
sure,
not listening to me, um, or he dismisses me, because most of the time that's it, where like that kind of
just
dismissive personality,
dismissive,
which
yeah,
is something awful. Like you don't want to teach your kids that, or anyone around you, that you're not
right,
going to take the time to listen. And I see people do that, and then they're like, I don't know why, my daughter's depressed or my kid's so upset. It's, well, you dismiss their feelings when they open up to you until they're at their wits' end and they're having a breakdown. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know. Well, I don't know what to do. It's like, don't dismiss people. If someone opens up to you, listen.
yeah, and it can even be an innocent dismissal, like, "Oh, don't be silly. What are you worried about that for?" Like it could be, it might not be like, "Ah, you're always."
Yeah.
It
Or
might
you're
not be like that. It might be like, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. Like you're being so like, what are you worried about that?" Like it might be innocent and
Mhm.
light, but still dismissive. And so in a way, it invalidates the person's experience entirely, and over time, yeah, they're gonna leave. They don't, because the thing is, I think everybody is worthy of being in a fulfilling relationship,
Definitely.
period. And so, um there's a Sting song, I think it's, I don't know which, I think it's on the album Sacred Love. Somewhere the line is, if you don't love her, your best friend will.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, yeah, she'll go seek comfort or safety or connection, or and it's always I stay the heck away from that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I know I lost one girlfriend because somebody else was listening better,
Mhm,
and he then started, just like you were talking about at the beginning. He started talking to her about she shouldn't be with me, and yeah,
mhm.
6 months later they were together.
Yeah.
Now I would never get, I'm like, yeah, I'm not that guy. You know, I would date her after they had been broken up for 6 months, but I'm not gonna be the shoulder to cry on. But I know a lot of
Mhm.
men use that as a,
Mhm.
apparently as an absolute strategy. So you know, it's
Or
an
just,
easy solution.
yeah,
There's an easy solution. Just be attentive to your lover. It solves that.
definitely. And if, especially like I'll just say for myself, I'm used to, giving and being there for others. So it's always a little uncomfortable for me to ask for help or to express what it is that I need. So I definitely think if someone's watching you struggle, then throw them a line like, okay, I see you're having a tough time. What can we do? And I always say that a woman's favorite four-letter word is PLAN, plan. If you say, babe, we can't do this right now, but I want to make a plan with you where we can do this, in a month or two, or like, I hear what you're saying. I want to be able to help you with your needs and all of this together. So let's make a plan so that that can happen. And as long as I don't feel like I'm a fool thinking that something's going to maybe someday, one day change. We've put a plan together and we're partnering together because this is really all about partnership. So, okay, we're picking a route and a path, and this is what we're gonna,
Yeah.
choose. And that's what women need to hear. Just same when you said, planning a date or a meal. You took time to plan, and then that makes women generally want to know that something's if they're gonna do anything, that it's gonna keep going long term because they don't want to open up
Sure.
their vulnerability, their body, their heart to something that's just going to be short term. Most women are pretty much looking still for something that's going to lead to a commitment or feel like this is worth it because a woman's putting her whole self at risk when she is with a man. She might uproot her life if she as a child. She's just increasing her vulnerability. So what you need to do as a man is make her feel not so vulnerable, that she is protected and safe and secure. That's
Mm.
oftentimes what women just need, and then they can open up and then they're delighted and happy and cheerful because they're in a good space to do that.
And just loved and appreciated. I mean, you know, like I posted, you know, you should be loving them and appreciating them every day. A lot of people say, well, you know, everything changes after marriage. I'm like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
My I was married for 3 years, and 2 years in, my mother-in-law came to visit us, and I always opened Isabel's doors, all of them, cars, you
Mm,
know, and closed them also. So like, she was getting into the car, I would open the door and, you know, wait till make sure all her straps and hems were inside, and then
nice.
close it.
Attentive.
And her mother was like, she had a very thick French accent, which
Mm.
I won't try to duplicate, but she was stunned that, you know, she's like, 2 years and you're still doing this. I said, yeah, I'm going to do it forever. Like it, well,
Yeah.
for as long as we were together, but you
Yeah.
know,
Good.
as it turns out. But yeah, as long as as long as I was in the relationship, of course I was going to open her doors, and it's something that it's something I enjoy. I enjoy. It's just something about, you know, and I date very feminine women, so it's a, I
Mhm.
mean, powerful, but like she was a
Yeah.
surgeon, but she was, you know, she surrendered into her, you know, she would blush
Mhm.
around me because yeah.
Yeah.
So and a lot of it was just my attention, my presence and attention, and you know, she had all of my focus and my
Mhm.
caring when we were together.
The focus is important, and it needs to be modeled. I think it really helps other people learn what a great relationship looks like and feels like, and that's why I think the flourishing part, an example, I think it really contributes to a healthy society for others to see, like, oh, there are people being kind to each other. The One of the reasons when I met my now ex-husband that liked him was that his parents had been married 30 years and they were incredibly sweet to each other. So that gave me, more confidence. But I liked seeing that because I hadn't really witnessed that as a kid or had many models or examples of that. So that's why, like a beautiful flourishing garden means that people, want to be around that garden. They're like, oh, that's this bearing beautiful fruit. So a healthy, dynamic, loving relationship is something that other people can say, oh, that's what that looks like. Oh, that's how that feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a contribution to society. I had a partner for a while, and he was almost probably borderline obsessed, but he was so focused on my needs and so sweet to me and all my friends. So all my friends were like, he's the best because he made sure everybody felt, happy. He was a gentleman. And then from there, all of my friends ended up marrying men who were also very gentlemanly and thoughtful and considerate. And I would say to guys, I'm like, it's really not that hard. All you have to do is make a woman feel cared about and
It's really
nurtured,
not.
and
Yeah.
she's gonna really appreciate that. And most women were exponential. You give us a little bit of love, and we'll give a lot back. As long as you're with a healthy, caring woman who wants to be treated well and can also reciprocate that, it's gonna work out well. Because I was saying to my friend the other day, women want men to win with them. We want a reason to sleep with you. We
Totally.
want a reason to go out with you. So I'm always like, please don't talk us out of it. I have had so many times where I'm like, God, that guy just completely talked me out of wanting to go out with him or see him again. He like said something really just like, or just went too in for the kill right away. Like, oh, she seems to like me, so this means she wants to sleep with me right now in the back of my car. Like, no.
By the way, I have a hard rule of no sex before at least the third date. And I think a lot of people, it's like I'm just not gonna do that.
That's a
And I
good
think
thing.
I've never been like, darn, I'm so disappointed I waited. Like at the very least, you filter out people who are, well, crazy for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh boy, I'm glad I did not. I'm gonna be very adult here. I'm glad I didn't put my cock in her. Holy crap,
You come
because
into
they got
energy with somebody.
and maybe it was as simple as the way they treated the restaurant waiter, and they
Mhm.
were rude or entitled, and be like, nothing. Like
Yeah.
you can tell a lot about how somebody is by the way they treat service people, strangers. I think. Um,
And
Diane,
everybody. Yes,
go
you can
ahead.
question. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Diane Sherman says, "How do you feel about getting loud, raising their voice, or yelling when angry?" What are your thoughts on that, Sarah?
Again, it's knowing your audience. Like some people are expressive. I have a lot of Greek and Israeli friends, and when they're talking with their hands and they're loud. And I usually kind of retreat a little bit if somebody is loud. Also, since I had an experience with domestic violence, I'm very sensitive. So I tell people like, hey, don't raise your voice too much around me. I'm not going to like that. Also, it makes me get in fight mode. I either, fight, flight, or freeze. So again, if all
Yeah,
communication is an invitation and it's compassionate and you really want that person to share, if they start to get really upset or you feel like you're going to yell, sometimes I think I've had to say, I need to take a walk now, or let's come back to
sure.
this when I'm a little calmer. I remember someone who would just antagonize me continuously, and I would get mad
Mm.
and I would just like throw stuff. And I broke some really nice stuff because I was mad. And I was really upset later. I'm like, I can't believe I just broke that. And, I was taking out my frustration when the person was like, we're going to talk about this now. And I'm like, I'm feeling too upset, too emotional. So I think it's good to say, just to put it in a little parameters around when you're going to talk. And yeah, it's okay to express or to cry. Like I didn't used to be a crier, but now I'll cry frequently and I'll just start weeping. And maybe they're like, whoa, I'm not doing it in a trying to get them to stop yelling at me. But
Yeah,
most of the time, yelling doesn't usually bring great results. But if that's
yeah.
what you truly feel, then go with how you feel.
I know there's a lot of different thoughts on this. I mean, even in personal development trainings around relationships, like, and often it's like let the woman. Like I knew one training where they were like, she might want to hit you on the chest and yeah, and let her do all those things. I'm like, yeah, I'm a no.
No,
And I think what you said there, like it's not going to get great results. Here's what happens when you raise your voice with somebody. First of all, you're probably not in a place where you should be communicating yet.
mhm.
If you're too, like you said, you need to take a walk or and any domestic violence expert will tell you, that you should absolutely like leave the house, don't stay
Mhm.
there, don't like we got to work this out now. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. And some people are, I've had some people tell me that they're afraid, like they want them to stay to work it out because they're afraid if they leave, maybe they're going to leave them, so there's this fear and anxiousness around it. Let them go, let them
Yeah.
leave. But also, you're never going to get a resolution when you're yelling or raising your voice. And you can say, I'm really angry right now. I don't. So in the past, I don't really get angry anymore. But in the past, when I did, I would say, I'm really angry right now. I don't think I can communicate responsibly.
Hmm.
And
That's healthy.
I need an hour. And it really,
Hmm.
for me, and the reason I started doing that, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, if I would raise my voice, then no matter what she had done, my ex-wife,
Hmm.
then all the focus became Jason yelled. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't matter how badly she, like what
Hmm.
outrageous things she was doing.
Hmm.
It wouldn't matter because then it just became, well, you got angry. So I was like, well, I'm not doing that because like the things she was doing were total bullshit. I'm like, no, I'm not. So I just started realizing that all the focus would shift to the anger and not to the actual. And you're never going to get a good result because all that happens then is the only thing that they remember, or you'll say things that are hurtful, but
Hmm.
I don't think you should have to raise your voice to get your point across. In fact, in my experience, if you get a lot quieter and a lot like
Hmm.
if you drop in and go, do you, then they're like, oh shit, this is serious. Like that actually has, I think, more impact.
It's more
If
powerful.
you, yeah, like I lower my voice
Hmm.
and get more grounded if I'm really upset because I want them to understand the gravity of what I'm trying to communicate.
That's good. I like that. Plus, it also sets a tone, and I'm a very tone sensitive person, as most humans are, really, because you can
Yeah,
always feel the tone. So even if I'm going to say something, if I know that I might get snippy, or what you talked about in the beginning of the conversation of letting things wait, and then when it finally comes out, it's just like, "Rah."
right.
So not waiting too long, or if something happens, I know if I drink too much caffeine, I'm my I'm just like really quick, and I can be snippy, and I have to tell myself like, oh no, you had too much caffeine to talk to anybody right now, because I'm on kind of like a dog spinning their tail. I'm a little bit manic on overdrive with too much caffeine. So okay, I need to
Sure.
meditate, I need to calm down. But if someone comes in and they want to talk to me about something, and I know it's not a good time or going to get a good result, then I think it's just incredibly responsible to say your handling instructions. Like the little tag on the
Yeah.
back of your shirt or your pillow says wash with care or gentle. It's like every human should know what their handling instructions are and their communication
Yeah.
style so they can express that for their own needs. So I think that's a good
Yeah.
question. Of course, sometimes we're human and we get angry,
Yeah.
and it
And
happens. So
I think in those moments, it's important to clean it up as quickly as possible. Like
yeah.
there have been times where I say a thing and the tone is, I don't say this, but the tone is, what are you, stupid?
Mhm.
And I'm right away. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to use that tone.
Yeah.
Like, like right away. And the faster you can clean that stuff up,
Mhm.
the better it is. It's better to avoid it entirely, obviously,
It
but
is.
the quicker you can clean it up,
And
the
soften.
better.
And with
Yeah.
text,
Yeah.
I tried not to really write anything if I'm in a bad mood, because I can feel energy. So I try to be really conscientious about that and how I write that. Oh, this is a great
Hey,
question,
hey,
Diane.
it is. Let me finish this. Shoot. The what was the last thing you said? Oh, text. So I would definitely I would, and pretty much everybody's going to ignore this. Anything important you shouldn't communicate over text. So yeah, there's not enough,
Agreed.
there isn't voice tone, there isn't inflection, there isn't. And so if it's important, if it's really important, pick up a phone, call them, do it, do it, whatever, video chat, like whatever, FaceTime them, or do it in person. That's in person to me.
Mhm.
Do it live. don't do it over text. It's at least going to be ripe for misinterpretation. They're
Big
gonna
one.
project things onto it that aren't there. Maybe you have a kind, loving tone, and they're gonna go, "Oh, they're angry."
Especially
So
women.
just because it'll just avoid ripe misinterpretation. It's ripe for misinterpretation, but
Yeah, and
also
voice clips are
take the time. Yeah, voice notes are helpful. Definitely. So I would just, I would say that, but text, don't do it. I keep text for basically logistics, or for like you can say something that's that it's appreciative, or just that
Mhm,
you're thinking about them or something. But if it's something that you're trying to work out or discuss or like navigate, and it's
mhm.
sensitive, don't do it
Yeah,
over text.
you're so right.
Um,
It's a good reminder.
so Di- and Diane's question is, how do you guys feel about your boyfriend, girlfriend is in constant contact with their ex? Why don't you go
I
for
have
it,
a lot
Diane?
to say on this. So Diane, thank you for that question. As a wonderful question. In the past, I used to be really fine with it. Even with my now ex-husband, I was really good friends with his ex-girlfriend. Her and I worked together. We were friends, but everything was complete. It was really good. Over the years, though, I've had men be pretty upset of how many. I have a lot of men friends and I work with a lot of men, so I've got great work relationships. Some of those men would be either a little insecure or competitive. But I will say pretty much what broke up my last relationship is the third party feeling, because he would speak every day with his ex-wife. Even then he would be like, "Oh, she's this or she's that." And I was felt protective and caring about it. And I was like, "So why do you talk every day with her then?" I didn't say
Do,
anything for
do
a long.
they have children? Do,
They do, but do you need to talk and be someone's therapist every day for an hour? No. She's a pretty manipulative kind of person in my mind. And it was just obviously starting to really get to me after a while. And I even said, like, hey, I need you to put more of your energy into this and your family
sure.
and not just being her therapist or really her doormat too. My one of my friends said that he his he's not married to her anymore, but for a while when they were married, she said, "Hey, you don't seem to like your job very much. You come home every day and you complain about it. So, why don't you take some time to either find a new job or not complain about it," kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really bumming me out too. So, and it's
Right.
making the relationship lower energy. So he's like, "You know what? I went out there and I found a new job and I was a lot happier and it was better." But he said, "I
Sure.
appreciated that she said, 'Hey, the fact that you have all of these kind of leaks in the boat right now um, are draining us, or I'm always feeling like this ship might sink.'" So back to like protecting your garden. If something is an external coming in and it's pulling energy away and it's making the relationship deteriorate, it's kind of like a parasite, then I say you might need to eliminate that or make it a very short amount of contact with that person if it really seems to be a problem. And a
Yeah.
healthy relationship with your ex, great. But in this case, it was pretty darn unhealthy. So that was when I finally said something. And that's
Yeah, I think it would depend. I don't really I would wonder why.
yeah.
But not in a so I wouldn't have any uh I wouldn't I think it depends on if you're coming from a place of insecurity when you're worried about it, or a place of concern, or maybe an intuitive sense that they're not like you said, complete. Um
Mhm,
and I always make sure that somebody's ready to date before they date. There have
mhm,
been exceptions certainly, but we don't become like I'm like, and uh there have been times where they've been single for 6 months or 8 months, but they're still working through some stuff with their ex, but they're not in communication with them. I've honestly just never really had it happen. But I really wouldn't care unless there was something that they were getting there that they weren't getting from
mhm.
me that I could provide, and then I would be curious about it. Um, but similarly, I've had experiences where, yeah, I don't know. I know I wouldn't have a trouble with it unless there
Mhm.
was a situation like you were talking about. But I'm sort of the opposite of jealous and possessive.
Yeah.
I just give people the freedom to be, because I'm not I don't have a play. I'm not living in fear or insecurity about what may happen because I make sure I take care of the relationship. Now, but if somebody was doing that a lot, or like the daily thing, unless they had kids, if they have kids, if they have like toddlers, then sure, I could see a reason to
Yeah.
communicate every day. In
It's,
general, not with her, not in that situation necessarily, but in general, like,
mhm,
I think children complicate the
absolutely.
question or the answer. Yeah.
They definitely do, and I have huge respect for that and being great co-parents. It's really that I think it when if every time he would speak to her, he would be in a bad mood or something would happen, it would completely change the mood. So we could be having a great
Yeah.
day. So if I had a friend or a job where every time I talked to them, I was in a bad mood afterwards, someone would say, "Gosh, this seems like it's not really bringing you that much joy. Is it necessary for you to talk to them every day for an hour and then be in a
Yeah.
bad mood afterwards?"
I
So,
mean, I didn't talk to my ex-wife for 16 years. So,
mm,
and then we finally talked, briefly just a few months ago, or 17 years. And I was like, yep, all the same reasons I left her. Or, they're all right. And so, that's all I needed. And we talked a couple of times, and she was getting divorced again. And she'd been with him we were together for 3 or 4 years. She was with him for 17. I was like, all right, and I understand how tough it was for her. And I was supportive for a few phone calls, but after that, I was like, yeah, I don't really need to be in communication with you.
mhm.
And I ended the communication and requested that she not contact me again. I mean, there's just no reason to like it. For me, it doesn't even make sense unless you have kids or you have financial interests together, maybe a
Mhm.
property. Like
A
those are
business.
reasons you might need to be in communication.
Mhm.
But in general, I would think you're no longer together. You should be no longer together for a reason, and if not, then so I would probably need to know more, Diane. But that's my
I was
those are our two perspectives on that.
Yes, and that was a very good question. I think also speaking of questions, whatever you can do to eliminate question marks. If it's obvious that the person, like for me, I was going, are things really complete with the two of you? And I wouldn't normally ask unless my intuitive sense. And the most important thing is to never dismiss your own intuition. So, when that
Yeah.
would come up and I really wouldn't get a very clear answer, it just prolonged my wondering, and it did not make me feel safe. And then I pretty quickly thought, I probably should go and be with someone who's going to be able to make me feel safe, or I'm just better off on my own. And that is when
Yeah.
relationships deteriorate. So, also, I guess I in some ways feel a little sorry for someone like him who is just being kind of used and manipulated, and then what does it cost him? Now he's got nobody. So for
Right.
years I was I'll be everybody's, best friend, even if what the cost is, and all that's fine. But people have to start looking at, what is this costing me? Is this draining or gaining? So if that external friendship or relationship is not great on what you're building and who you are now and what you want to create with someone, then you have to say,
Hmm.
that's my past, or I need to really compartmentalize this. It's just being
Yeah.
responsible and taking inventory. And back to feng shui, the first thing that you do in your environment is you declutter it. So if there's a lot of relationships that are draining your energy, or furniture or items or clothing, but definitely people who are draining for you, then you need to, remove that clutter. Same as you would do with a diet. If you're detoxing, you're like, oh, I'm allergic to these foods, or it's not serving me. I better do a detox and declutter my life inside and out. Declutter my thoughts, declutter people who just
Mm.
are not part of my best interests and that of the relationship that I have now and what I want to build. So it's a
Great.
more powerful
Yeah.
place to come from.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Well, let's wrap this up. It's been a delightful hour. We're going to do more of these on different topics. You can reach me through evolutionarycompanies.com. Since 2004, I've had over 500 clients through one-on-one 6-month programs, and I occasionally lead courses. All this stuff's there. And evolutionarygentleman.com is the website I'm currently working on and the next offering. Sarah, you want to say how people can reach you and what you're up to?
Sure. And thank you. And I will say, it's just a pleasure to always hear you. And back to the gardening tools, I suggest everybody get tools for love and communication. So Jason is great at that. So highly, highly suggest that if you want your life to feel good and continue that way. I'm creating a course to have more magic, mojo, and moxie in your life. And then I will also soon be offering feng shui consultations. I intuitively was into feng shui when I bought my first house at age 20, and I always everything felt great. I brought in money and joy and health and wealth, and then over the years I kind of didn't keep my house in order in that regard, and things didn't go as smoothly. So now I'm reminded about how important that is, and so I'm doing it for myself, and then we'll be offering it for other people because it makes it a very quick difference in your life to have your environment be harmonious. So I will be offering that soon as well, and the magic and mojo spells, you can have a daily life filled with more magic and courage and love and all that good stuff.
Thank you, Sarah. Always a delight. Always a delight.
Likewise.
We'll be speaking soon.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Diane, for those questions.
Thank you.
So great.
Yes, thank you. Awesome questions.
Yes, so good. Sorry, I got a little too describing it, but thanks.
No, you're right. And happy